I see the Zoom room is starting to fill up. Welcome everybody to the first virtual speakers session of the new year. Happy New Year to everybody. As always, we're going to invite you to tell us who you are and where you're from. You can drop that information into the chat box on the bottom of Zoom, or if you are watching us on Facebook Live, put it in the comments. We'd love to see who is participating out on Facebook and where you're participating from. We'll be getting started in just a minute. We have a great session lined up for you today. We're talking with two Penn Staters about their work. They are the co-founders of the Prison Journalism Project, and they're going to talk about the great work that they are doing with that project. I see that we're now live on Facebook, so I'll invite those who are out on Facebook, go ahead and tell us who you are and where you're from. We'll be getting started in just a minute with today's virtual speaker session. Happy New Year, everybody. I see Maria Worley right here at University Park, writer and instructional designer. I see Peggy Rothenberg from Half Moon Bay, California. Good morning, Peggy. And Paul McConaughey back up on Cape Cod. Paul, good to see you. We'll be getting started in just a minute. Welcome to the virtual speaker series. I see Ellen Feinstein from Chicago. She is on the Zoom call. Welcome, Ellen. We'll be getting started in just a moment. Welcome to the virtual speaker series presented by the Penn State Alumni Association. Where else would you rather be than a Zoom full of Penn Staters? Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm Paul Clifford, CEO of the Penn State Alumni Association, and I'd like to welcome everybody to today's virtual speaker session, which is being recorded. Live closed captions are available for this event. You can access them by clicking the closed caption button at the bottom of your Zoom video window, and then clicking Show Subtitle. You may also customize your caption view by clicking the Stream to Text link posted in the chat. We're live streaming today's presentation, and this live stream has been made possible through the gracious support of a donor and the Fund for Access, Ideas, and Audacious Goals. Today's presentation will be archived and available on our website after the event. This afternoon, we welcome Professor Shaheen Pasha and journalist Yukari Iwatani Kane, who are also the co-founders of the Prison Journalism Project. That is the subject of today's conversation. Journalism wields enormous power by choosing who and what to highlight. The Prison Journalism Project aims to provide the tools for incarcerated and incarceration-impacted men and women to harness that power to tell their own stories. In this discussion, we'll examine how prison journalism education can shed light on an invisible aspect of society and help the incarcerated population become thought leaders in the conversations around criminal justice and mass incarceration. Let's take a minute to introduce our professors for today. First, our presenters for today. First, Professor Shaheen Pasha is an assistant teaching professor at Penn State focused on mass incarceration and prison education. She is also the co-founder and co-executive director of the Prison Journalism Project. Prior to joining Penn State, Shaheen was an assistant professor at UMass Amherst, where she launched the immersive explanatory journalism class at the Hampshire County Jail, bringing incarcerated and UMass students together to learn. Shaheen was awarded the Knight Nieman Visiting Fellowship to expand her work in teaching journalism behind bars. She is a veteran journalist with over 20 years of experience at outlets such as Thomson Reuters, CNN Money, and Dow Jones Wall Street Journal. Yukari is the co-founder and co-executive director of the Prison Journalism Project. She is also an author, educator, and veteran journalist with 20 years experience. She was a staff writer and foreign correspondent for the Wall Street Journal and Reuters, and her book, Haunted Empire: Apple After Steve Jobs, was translated into 7 languages. She is currently an adjunct lecturer at Northwestern University, where she has taught journalism fundamentals, investigative reporting, and the Metal Justice Project. At San Quentin News, where she still serves as an advisor, she developed a curriculum and reader for prison journalism. She was previously a lecturer at the University of California, Berkeley, Graduate School of Journalism. It's now my pleasure to turn the program over to Shaheen and Yukari. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. It's
Thank you.
All right. So as Paul mentioned, my name is Shaheen Pasha, and I'm the co-founder and co-executive director of the Prison Journalism Project. I'm also the assistant teaching professor of journalism at Penn State. So one of the things I wanted to really kind of talk about is where our journey began. And I think, when you look at our careers as journalists, I've been a journalist for 20 years, but the Prison Journalism Project itself really started here. The origins of this is at the New Jersey State Prison. And that's because, as we mentioned, I've been a journalist. I've been covering legal news and business news, both here in the United States and also as a foreign correspondent overseas. But it really wasn't until incarceration actually hit home for me. I became one of the millions of Americans who are touched by incarceration. In my case, it was my best friend. And I wrote about this this year, so talking about the origins. He was a childhood friend, and he was arrested and convicted in a post 9/11 world. And he was one of the last death penalty cases in New Jersey, and wound up getting about 127 years in prison. And once that happened, it sort of changed my world. Up until that point, I had been covering court cases, but then it really showed me just what it's like to be behind bars. And what I saw there was this world that is full of people with lots of potential, including my friend, who's super smart. And there was nothing for him. I mean, he was super smart, college educated, and yet there was nothing to be productive. And he was basically being forgotten. So this kind of haunted me as, I went through my career. I was a journalist, as we mentioned, for CNN and Dow Jones, and then I went overseas to the Middle East for Reuters, and I came back as an academic and wound up teaching at UMass Amherst. And for the first time, I actually had the ability to do something about this drive that I had to kind of tell these stories, or at least try to do something for people behind bars. I wound up volunteering at the Hampshire County Jail, which is in Northampton. And I went in there and I asked, hey, can I come and volunteer and teach for you guys? And they were so excited. They're like, yes, absolutely. What do you want to teach? And I was like, I want to teach journalism. And they said, no. And it was without a hesitation or a breath. And that kind of shows just the relationship that oftentimes Department of Corrections and sheriff's offices have with journalism. So I kind of, charmed them a little bit, changed the semantics, and wound up teaching media writing, which is journalism, to men inside the Hampshire County Jail. And it was unbelievable. We saw these men for the first time really understand that their stories mattered, and that they could tell them, that they could understand how to put these narratives together, how to understand how the news worked. And it got me thinking that this is something we can do. Eventually, I partnered with another colleague of mine at UMass, and we taught an immersive class where we brought in 17 UMass students into the jail to work alongside 10 men at Hampshire County to do explanatory journalism. And the guys came up with the story ideas and did the interviewing inside, and my students at UMass did the interviewing outside. And it was amazing because the stories they came up with I had never heard of. And it finally clicked that of course I would never have heard of them, because I'm not there, I'm not living there 24/7. And that inspired me to say, you know what, this is something we need to take national. We need to be doing this at every prison. We need to be doing this at every jail. So I applied for the Knight Nieman Foundation Fellowship to do this, to study how to create a curriculum, how to teach journalism behind bars, create a textbook for this. And I was really lucky. I became a fellow there and in order to do that. And one of the really cool things that kept happening at that time was everybody kept saying, have you heard of San Quentin? I was like, yes, I've heard of San Quentin. Have you heard of Yukari Kane? And it was this constant, you need to meet this woman. So eventually in August 2018, as part of my fellowship, I went out to San Quentin, which is the only completely prisoner-run, prisoner-managed newspaper. I went out to meet them in their newsroom, and Yukari was an advisor there. And when I say some things are just kind of meant, in that meeting where we just met everybody, in that drive home from San Quentin back to San Francisco, I think the entire prison journalism project kind of came out of that meeting. So I wanted to turn it over to Yukari and sort of let her give you a little bit of insight too.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. I'm Yukari Kane. I'm also a co-founder and co-executive director of the Prison Journalism Project. As Shaheen said, we met at San Quentin. Prior to that, I was a journalist for about 20 years as well, first at Reuters and at the Wall Street Journal covering business and the technology industry, Silicon Valley, and more specifically. I was the last reporter at the Journal to cover Apple under Steve Jobs and ended up writing a book called Haunted Empire. And the week that my book launched, I found out that I was in stage 4 kidney failure, and that kind of just turned a lot of things around in terms of figuring out what I really wanted to do with my career. And I ended up taking 6 months off to go traveling. I did get a kidney from one of my sisters, and the week and the month that I was recovering, I got a call from UC Berkeley's Graduate School of Journalism inviting me to teach, and so that's how I got into teaching in academia. All this time, I have this poster behind me actually saying I became a journalist to come as close as possible to the heart of the world. And in some ways I was doing business journalism, but in a lot of ways I wanted to do more. And so I had been searching as well when I saw an email from a friend saying that San Quentin was looking for a journalism instructor. And so that's how I got into prison journalism. I went there. I can imagine, I can still remember my first day. I was very nervous and scared as well. And it just opened my world to stories I had never imagined, to talent I had never expected. And I haven't stopped since. While I was there, I created a textbook and a curriculum to teach journalism inside. And so you see a photo of our the last graduating class before I moved from San Francisco to Chicago, where I now teach at Northwestern. So Shaheen and I started the Prison Journalism Project initially to create a curriculum and a textbook that we can offer to prisons nationwide to start more publications. In the 1950s, there were about 140 papers and newsletters and all kinds of publications inside prisons. And over the decades, as budgets were cut and there were some court rulings that gave prisoners First Amendment rights, prisons responded by taking away those publications. And so today we estimate there's less than 10 across the country. In this country, there are 2.3 million people who are incarcerated, and it's crazy that there are no publications, or there are very few publications inside, and all these stories that remain untold. So when the pandemic hit, we realized that the stories from inside really should be part of the historic record. And we started a publication on Medium, put out a call of submissions, and were immediately inundated. I don't think we realized how many writers there were inside who had been waiting to tell their stories. And as in May George Floyd happened and Black Lives Matter kicked off, and we started getting submissions about that as well. And so we moved to our own independent site, and we opened it up to all kinds of topics. And today we have our own site called prisonjournalismproject.org. And in 2020, since we started our publication in late April, we published over 350 stories by over 140 writers in 28 states. When you think about it, that's pretty amazing breadth. And what that's allowed us to do is to really get a good bird's eye view of what's going on. And so now some of the work that we're doing is to think about what we can do with that. This is a screen capture of our website. And so this Share Your Story is a page that's available through the site. We have printed versions that we send in to the writers. And the way the process works is that they send in submissions to a virtual mailbox that we have. We have volunteer transcribers and editors who transcribe and edit and help us get the stories in shape. And then we use a Squarespace operated site, and we schedule it and put it out. Do you want to get to the next slide, Shaheen? These are a few more screen captures, but we just wanted to show you the breadth of the writers that we have. This is just a partial list, by the way. One of the things that we do is that every writer who submits at least one story gets their own profile page, and we have a screen capture to show you that later on. When we have this many submissions, one of the things we realized is we needed a way to highlight our best writers and their best work. And so we have a contributing writers program. And so if they've demonstrated a certain quality of work, then we invite them to be contributing writers, and we do a special write-up about them. This is, right now, I think we have 6 contributing writers, so there are 2 that are missing here. The contributing writer program is a way for us to identify the best writers, and they're the ones that we work one-on-one with. They're the ones that we offer our training to start. And when we do collaborative journalism projects, those are the writers that we would turn to. And for the writers, they can identify themselves as contributing writers with the Prison Journalism Project. Here are a couple of more pages. We have a Youth Voices section. We have a partnership with a group in Florida called Exchange for Change, and they teach journalism inside the Miami Youth Academy, and where they put together a monthly newsletter. And so we republish those stories, and it's been one of our more popular pages. We have a formerly incarcerated multimedia director Christopher Etienne, who himself has a remarkable story. He got out of prison, went to Rutgers, got an undergraduate degree, and then went to Columbia J School, and is now a documentary journalist. And so he's been helping us get some more video stories and artwork, and we're right now preparing a podcast series as well. And then finally, this third page you see here is just, it's our search page, and we tag our stories. So anybody who's doing research or academics can find stories under categories. We have a number of partnerships with groups that are keeping historical records of the COVID experience. And so I think they often come here to check out the new COVID sites. I'll turn it over to Shaheen to talk specifically about some of our stories.
So what makes this kind of interesting and unique in a way is that while there are many publications that do amazing work and they write about the prison system and they're news outlets, what we do is we sort of take it a step further. We are still fundamentally, foundationally an educational initiative, because what we realized is that when you are asking people to report from inside, but they don't have the training to be able to do it, or they haven't had access to the programs to be able to learn how to do that, a very limited number of people are actually allowed to tell their stories. So what we have done is we have created this educational initiative, which we are actually going to be launching very soon, called PJ School. And what it consists of is basic foundational, like journalism primers and AP style guidebooks and things like that, a lot of which is already available on our site and we're already sending in to our writers. But we're going to go beyond that and start creating sort of like these intro to journalism curriculums with modules and exercises in order for our writers, those that are interested, to be able to go further and further in their journey and move from an intro piece, which is something like what we would have here, which is a Q&A. There are so many interesting people behind bars that you find. And we did not know this, but Suge Knight, who's the founder of Death Row Records, he was incarcerated with a man in California. And as far as we can tell, this is probably one of his, I think it's first interview Q&A that he's done since he has been incarcerated. And this is a very simple way to get people started, to teach them about the interviewing process, teach them about questions and answers and follow-ups and how to find the stories from within larger interviews. And it's a very simple model that we provide to our writers to say, okay, start with a Q&A, and then you can take it to the next level from there. And the next level is the timely interview story. And this was a story done during George Floyd, during the protests over the summer. And it involved the writer going out and interviewing other incarcerated men that were in his facility with him, but also some of the COs to understand the impact of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, and be able to really give us an insight into what was happening, what the views were and the thoughts were of people behind bars, both the working behind bars and those that were living behind bars. And this is the next step, to be able to take it beyond a simple Q&A to doing more in-depth kind of reporting. And then our goal is to make it go from there to more of a multimedia type thing. This was a fantastic clip that we have on our site, which was from San Quentin. It's our actual editorial associate. He's somebody that advises us from inside as well. He did a dispatch from San Quentin talking about the impact of the election. It was an audio piece that our multimedia director then put to some amazing footage and video and just music, and it came out beautiful because it allowed us to get an insight into what the men in San Quentin were looking for with the election and what issues mattered to them and why, which is something a lot of times we don't get that insight because we're not in there. We can do some storytelling, but not the type of in-depth storytelling that these guys are able to do inside. So with our initiatives, we start off very simple, handouts, quick guide to journalism, writing prompts, because we find that it gives them, our writers, especially the beginning writers, a place to start, teach them how to write a simple Q&A story. We provide a style guide, which is based on the AP style book, but also based on some of the style guides from San Quentin News in particular, because there are certain things behind bars that matter. For instance, AP style has, you capitalize the B in for Black, but you don't capitalize W for white. In prison, white is an identity. Therefore, based on the San Quentin guidebook and based on our own knowledge, we've made our PJP style guide reflect that. So Black is capitalized and white is capitalized too. We are going to be creating a syllabus bank because we're already teaching. I teach, she teaches, and a number of other advisors teach as well inside prisons and jails. So providing a syllabus bank to get other people started, because our goal is that we spread this information around the country and have people going into prisons and jails. We are contributing, or we have contributed, we're waiting for it to get published, to PEN America's Handbook for Writers in Prison, which is amazing and really gave us this opportunity to really go in depth and show how to do leads, how to do inverted pyramids, and sort of create the foundation for the textbook, which we are creating. And the textbook is called the Prison Reporter's Guide to Journalism, and it is the first of its kind that's going inside. But what makes it even more interesting is that it's partially in comic form, because what we found is many of our writers are visual learners, and for us, accessibility is key. So we want to make sure that regardless of your background, educational initiatives that you've had or programming, you are able to understand and take in the material that we're providing. So I'm going to turn it over to Yukari.
So, as we kick off 2021, a lot of the thinking that we've been doing is, so where do we go from here? We've been off to a really strong start. We are probably 5 years ahead of where we thought we'd be, and where we've come to is again this breadth of writers that we have, 140 writers from 28 states. And we've been doing a lot of thinking about what if we thought of our writers as correspondents from their prisons? And what if we can tell stories by partnering with them as reporters? And you know, in addition to working with them one-on-one and op-eds, et cetera, on the multimedia front, you know, how can we connect inside and outside talent to tell stories via audio, via video? And so that's where we are right now. What our plans this year is to launch PJ School, a handout-based training program that would be hand in hand with our collaborative journalism projects. Right now, we're fleshing out themes that we want to focus on this year. One of the ideas that we're excited about is about prison food. A lot of the prison life is around how to avoid eating prison food, and so they do a lot of cooking on their own with food that you can buy from the commissary, and so we want to collect recipes and the stories behind them. You know, we're wondering if there are regional differences. For example, are there differences state by state? And we think that there's been a lot of focus on food already, and so that's a way we can shed light on you know, part of prison life that most people might not think of. We also have ideas about how to flesh out stories about the prison economy. You know, what does the prison upper class look like versus the prison middle class? How is the lifestyle different, et cetera? And so you'll see us doing more journalism work with our writers. You'll see us, our writers, incorporating more journalism tools as they go through prison PJ School. And part of what we hope to do, of course, is to work one-on-one with them to get more op-eds out. We've had a pretty good track record so far. We've had our writers be published in the Washington Post, in the San Francisco Chronicle, in the Dallas Morning News most recently, and so we hope to keep doing that work. And of course, there are challenges, and so you know, one of the areas that we're doing, we're trying to develop is to think about fact checking and how do we make sure that their facts are good. And then the second challenge we're starting to come across is changing the mind frame in the broader journalism world. And by that, there are a lot of media organizations that are interested in stories from inside, but right now we're finding that they are seen as one-off novelties. But you know, with 2.3 million people inside, there's just a whole breadth of stories. The same as a country, really. You know, there are fun stories, there are serious stories, there are stories that highlight problems. And there are a lot of stories that are not told yet. But we see a lot of opportunity and we're really excited about things coming ahead.
And just to kind of jump on that as well, you know, we really see this as, even though there are challenges, we see so many more opportunities that we are excited to jump on. One of the things that, yeah, she was mentioning with the 2.3 million, we are both foreign correspondents, Yukari and I. We both worked overseas, but we went in parachuted into a country, but those countries still had journalists that were able to tell the story from off the ground. Here we have 2.3 million people, the size of Botswana. And there is no correspondent that's actually inside. Everybody's a foreign correspondent coming in for about 5 seconds, learning, you know, what they can based within a very limited time frame, limited movement, and then going back and telling stories upon which, you know, change is made and upon which, you know, laws are created and, you know, things are done. So we see a huge opportunity to be able to bridge that gap and be able to have our men and women actually tell the, you know, be able to tell the real issues and stories that are happening behind bars because they're the correspondents, they're inside. Beyond that, we also see opportunity for interesting creative ways of storytelling. One of the things we've really found is that a lot of our men and women are, you know, write poetry inside. A lot of the programming that is in there is creative writing programming. So there's a lot of poetry, but within those poems that we read, there are immense stories and narrative threads that can be completely developed. So that's an area, this whole concept of narrative poetry is something that we are really excited to develop and move further on. So yes, there are challenges, but we actually are very excited about the opportunities to come. So on that note, we are that's our social media. We're very excited about social media. We're active on it. So there's Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. So we would love to take your questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Fascinating work that you all are doing. We have a number of questions that were submitted beforehand and that are coming in along the way, and so we'll get to those. So, what is the most important takeaway for society when prisoners tell their story?
I think one of the most important takeaways from society is that this is a community. And we oftentimes don't view people inside as a community, but there are friendships, there's love, there's politics, there's hierarchy, a lot of the same things that are happening outside, but in a very restricted environment. So I think when we start to view people inside as a community and not some sort of like, you know, far away, we don't touch them kind of group of people, it brings the humanity back. And that humanity is what is needed, especially when you do have 2.3 million people and you have thousands of people that are impacted by family members and friends who have gone inside. It creates a real hole in society. So I think by allowing those stories to come out and viewing them as human beings, as community members, it goes a long way in helping society to figure out how do we reintegrate, how do we make laws and changes that can benefit them. We also are very clear that Yukari and I are not advocates. We are journalists. We don't do advocacy. We let the men and women tell their stories, but we ourselves are not advocating one way or another. We try to keep that line very clear.
Yeah, it seems like there are a number of lines that would need to be clear in terms of editorial responsibility, in terms of advocacy, like you just mentioned. I'm wondering about some barriers that might be in place for this work. You talked about your challenges, but one of the challenges that I was thinking about is what is the level of connectivity that those who are studying in your programs have to the outside world, have to the internet and other resources to help inform what they're writing on the inside?
It's really varied. Most of the prisoners in this country are still primarily using snail mail. And so we have a virtual mailbox. So that's an address in Delaware, and writers send us requests for information and submit their stories to this address. I actually, out of the corner of my eye, I see a question from Sue Hutchins on chat asking how writers can get in touch. And there's an address on our Share Your Story page that I'll also post here as well. But that's where we do our primary correspondence. Depending on the state, they have a closed email system called JPay, and CoreLink, and we have accounts on both. And so if they do have the capability, if they're given the capability to send email out, we accept stories through those accounts as well. But you know, the technology question is a great question, and it's actually one of the themes that we're thinking about for this year in terms of a story, because even just taking JPay, for example, the experiences are so different. In California, the guys can receive mail, but they can't send it out. So we have a weird system where I send in emails to them, and then they write back from me. They write back in snail mail, and I get the answer 10 days later.
Right. And is the same restrictions around internet access? Can they do background research on their stories? Is there a place to access the internet, or?
No, and that's one of the big challenges why it's such a black box, because internet access is completely controlled and it's off limits to incarcerated men and women. So one of the things that we've done in terms of like immersive classes and kind of bringing in prison journalism project into universities and those type of programs is if you can have an immersive class like I've had where you have students working with students inside, the inside students do the reporting from behind bars and the outside students do the outside reporting. But beyond that, what we wind up doing is for the stories that are not like that, our men and women, they write their stories, we fact check them. And that's something, if we cannot verify the information, if we cannot verify the data, or if the data is old, because a lot of their material is coming from books or things that might be outdated, we as editors, we do that. And we update it and we inform them that, you know, there will be changes. What we aim to do when we edit our writers' work is to give it as professional an edit as they should expect from people that are, you know, that are journalists. So that means that we will cut it out. If there's lots of accusations we cannot verify, or we just, you know, or if they're taking on their personal cases, we remove all of that. So in terms of information, it's very spotty, and that's where it comes up to us and our volunteer editors to kind of do the fact checking.
And also in our collaborative stories to combine outside reporting with inside reporting.
It's interesting, the San Quentin example that you gave with the internal publication that they have. It strikes me that there might be some similarities between that and maybe like the Daily Collegian here at a university, where it's student journalists producing a student publication. What is the editorial control that you allow those on the inside who are producing that publication versus? I'm wondering. You talked about the challenge of getting into the systems because of the the hesitation from the correctional institutions to participate in this. Is there a want or a desire for those institutions to have some level of editorial control?
Let me take that in parts, and then Shaheen, you can jump in if I miss something. So with the San Quentin News, the writers do have complete editorial control. There is a process where they send all stories to Sacramento, and they have to be approved. Now, the staff people in charge on the Sacramento end have so far been very supportive, and I can recall only one story in the last 10 years that they did stop because of concerns about safety for some of the subjects that were portrayed in the story. But other than that, everything's been approved. The writers are careful themselves. They know that they have this newspaper by the graces of the corrections institution. In terms of as the Prison Journalism Project, right now they submit stories to us, and it's their stories. So we do some light fact checking, but we also have a disclaimer saying that this is their story, and especially particularly with first person accounts, we just can't fact check them. And as journalists, I think we think that being transparent about that is important. I think in terms of the corrections departments and their level of control, so far we have not encountered it. I think the pandemic has made us realize that we don't necessarily need to go through the Department of Corrections in the various states to offer our writers the opportunities that we can offer them. It's their one-on-one relationships. We do have some partnerships with programs through which our submissions information goes out, and some of them are more careful than others. But in general, we've been able to work with our writers directly.
So Christine has a question here that she used to teach at the Bedford Correctional Facility, the only maximum security for women. Does your program reach women as well?
Absolutely. And that is actually a group that we're trying to build more of, because a lot of programming is not available in women's prisons. I mean, in comparison to men's facilities. So we have obviously far less women than male writers, but that's growing. And part of it is we are being able to get our information inside various women's institutions. And the work that comes out of there is just unbelievable. I mean, like some of the stories that have come out of California and I think Virginia have just, from the women's institutions, have just given such insight into the levels of relationships and, what happens, like how women get involved in these situations and what societal failures are beyond, the crime that have brought them there. And I think that nuance you really do get a lot oftentimes from women that are kind of writing their stories. So we are absolutely looking for more female facilities. So if anybody has the ability to do that, we have brochures. We will happily send you the brochures to get them in, because that is an area that we really want to have more of.
And if you're interested in getting in touch, the contact information for the Prison Journalism Project is in the chat box. We will be sharing it afterwards as well, so that you can send information or receive information about the work that they're doing. A couple more questions coming in. I was fascinated by some of the examples that you shared in terms of the types of work that are coming out. And I was in particular um, the kind of excited to see that it's coming in a variety of formats, right? It's not just in writing, but there's video being produced. You talk about podcasts that are going to be produced, but of the stories that are being told, I think of what we're hearing now in terms of the school to prison pipeline. I think about what we hear in terms of, um, the mass incarceration of generations of people of color. What are you hearing from those who are incarcerated? What are the stories that they are telling around those topics that are, top of mind for people who are outside?
I think they're. I mean, they're. We've gotten a lot of submissions, and it's really all top of mind. I mean, a lot of our writers have written stories about, I was George Floyd before George Floyd, sharing their experiences with police brutality since they were children, actually. We've had stories, submissions about the responsibility they feel as role models, as male Black role models inside prison with the younger generation, with the younger kids. We have a powerful writer in Illinois at Stateville Correctional who has written about his failure as a parent, and with a stunning disclosure at the end that his own son is in the cell above him. And so, yeah, we just so much relevance. One of the two submissions or two pieces that have really hit us hard over the last couple of weeks was out of Georgia, and it's a writer named Richard, and he writes about his first 3 days in jail, where he was. Because he was deemed mentally unstable, he was put in a padded room naked for 3 days. And it really illustrates how he went from a human being to a prisoner, and the psychological change that happens. The second piece that he published was about his first year inside prison. And so, if I've sometimes wondered what it's like the first days, the first year, and it really gives us a powerful and shocking look and insight into that experience.
And one of the pieces that's actually in the works I'm editing right now is a piece coming out of from a writer about when he was first he hadn't been convicted yet, and he had been put into solitary for a year. And this was pre-conviction while he was being held before trial. And I personally I'd heard stories about solitary, but I don't think until you actually see or visually you can put those words and that description of what that segregated unit looks like, and the dehumanization that happens there. I mean, I've been editing and I keep having to take breaks because it's one of those moments that I thought I knew, but I didn't until he actually wrote it. And I think those kinds of stories are so impactful, especially in all the things you're talking about, because we have views on solitary, we have views on life without parole and all these things. But until you are actually seeing that through the eyes of a person living it, you really don't know. And I think that that's why these stories are so important and so impactful to get out. On a positive note, one of the things that we are really proud of, kind of going back to your school to prison pipeline, is this relationship that we've cultivated between Exchange for Change and the Miami Youth Academy and the San Quentin News, where and Yukari helped facilitate this, where basically the writers from San Quentin News are mentoring these young kids, and they're writing letters to each other. And no matter how much we as educators or as journalists kind of go in, or people trying to mentor young kids to stay on a good track, when you see the letters that are being exchanged between, because we see them and we have published them, I mean, we are so hopeful that that is actually leaving a mark on this next generation of kids, because I know it's definitely impacting our guys in San Quentin on a massive level. But we see that, as something that we can provide, and we're really happy to do so too.
It's interesting as I hear you talk about these programs, because I would imagine some prisoners come to your program having had no exposure or no writing experience beforehand, but thought, maybe I'll try this, right? I have some time, maybe I'll jump in and do this. But the stories that you're sharing, some people come to your program with a journalistic mindset, like to have it in mind that I'm going to take note of my first 3 days because I'm going to want to write about my first 3 days. Seems like you're getting a wide variety of people with journalistic intent, right? And so across that spectrum, how do you make sure that everybody is kind of moving through your program at a pace that's appropriate for them?
It's a great question. Actually, most of our writers do not have journalistic experience, but it's interesting that you saw that, because I think they are, because of the environment that they're in, they're great observers. And so what we want to do is to train them with journalistic tools so they can become sophisticated observers. And yeah, we want to, what makes us unique is that we're educators in addition to being journalists and a newsroom. And so we're not just looking to handpick the best writers to tell us their stories. We want to work with everybody. We want to give everybody a chance to write and be published and have impact with an outside audience. And so, and that's very much the intent with which we are building PJPJ School. So it's handout based. Every module is very, very specific. Some of our writers are going to basically just blitz through the program. Others might spend a couple months or a couple of stories working on one skill. And but in terms of the stories that come in, we try to publish a little bit of everything. And so no matter how disjointed something is, our intent is to look for something, a part of it that's publishable. I think we estimate that we probably publish about 90% of the submissions. Not all of it, but at least a little bit of it.
A note coming in from Sue Hutchins. Sue actually submitted a question as part of the registration, where she has self-published a book called Bleak Walls, Bright Minds, which is a collection of stories by 27 lifers in Iowa's prison. And she wants to get in contact with the organization. So she put her contact information in there. It looks like Brendan Berniker, who is a lost Penn State class of 2019, liberal arts, but is now at Yale Law School. He's helping 5 men serving life without parole sentences in Connecticut publish a book about their experiences. And so it looks like he may want to connect with you all as well. Barbara Bellhummer put in the question. So Carla Hayden will be proud of you. She shares your hard work and respect for prisoners and all men. Libraries are the cornerstone of democracy, where information is free and equality is available to everybody. People tend to take that for granted, and they don't realize what is at stake when it's put at risk. She goes on to write, I recall her days of busing Maryland prisoners to Enoch Pratt Library. She assured them that the services to enable education and employment. She asked the question, are prisoners offered library cards and library services in most of the facilities that you are working in?
It varies. Honestly, one of the biggest problems that our men and women do face is that depending on institution, state to state, they may have access to libraries, they may have limited access to libraries, they may have certain books that are just completely censored and that they're never allowed to receive. So when it comes to the library, and also in terms of getting books from the outside, you have a few vendors that are allowed inside. So Amazon is one of them, but there have been cases where people send a book inside and it gets rejected, even though you'd be like, why is this even a problem? But something about it is deemed inappropriate, or they're afraid I'm in one case, I think one of my guys once told me the autobiography of Malcolm X was rejected,
Right.
and it was just, no, it's gonna foment unrest or something. And so there's lots of reasons. Yes, I'm a huge library nerd, so I would love for all of our guys, men and women, to have it. But this is one of the challenges that we face, because even us sending material in, there have been cases where stuff has just been sent back and it's been basically like a handout of something, and it's been sent back. So we have to always be really careful.
And just to respond to the all of the viewers who have connections with jails and prisons, please do get in touch with us via email. We're very accessible. You'll get a response from us pretty quickly. It's one of the ways that we do connect with jails and prisons individually. And, we have representation from 28 states, but there are a lot more states that we don't. And within them, it starts with a few prisons and it grows from there. So especially if you have insight, especially if you have connections with women's prisons, jails are harder than prisons because the incarceration time tends to be shorter and there are fewer education programs. We're also interested in stories from immigration detention centers, Native American facilities and Native American reservations. We really want to shed light in all the nooks and crannies where the stories are being buried.
Also death row, that's an area that that we are very interested in getting more from. We've been fortunate to have received some amazing work out of death row in California, in San Quentin. So we want to build that and just kind of have those tales and really see the different situation scenario. I see. Were you involved with Ear Hustle?
Unfortunately, I was not, but Ear Hustle was produced in the same media center at San Quentin. San Quentin is an exceptional prison in the sense that there is a media center. The newspaper has a staff photographer. In fact, Eddie Herrera was a photographer that recently came out. And when he came out, the public information officer allowed him to take the thousands of photos that he had taken as a staff photographer, and we have them all. We have about an archive of about 17,000 photos from San Quentin that we're trying to figure out what to do with. But yeah, Ear Hustle was next to us, and I do know Erlon, and Nigel, but I didn't have anything directly to do with it.
Although Raysan has written for us a few times.
Raysan has written for us, and we're great fans, and we support them entirely.
So this is a really specific question, and Shaheen, you might have information about this, but somebody pre-submitted a question asking about the New View program at the State Correctional Institute at Rockview. They were an inmate there. And they were able to take classes at Penn State, and some are able to pursue a degree while they are there. Do we know if that program is still in existence?
I'm not 100% sure if that program is still in existence. I do know that a number of the programs at Rockview and around, Centre County Correctional Facility, the many different prisons and jails around this area have been halted or were halted during the beginning of the pandemic. The CCCF, which is the Centre County Correctional Facility, the local jail, I actually taught there last semester as well. That did open up with some video classes, but they are few far between. So what we're seeing is, I'm actually, I work with the Restorative Justice Initiative here at Penn State to try to get into more of these facilities. And, we're planning some inside out classes, but the struggle we're facing is right now with COVID, just the uncertainty and the technology issues and comfort levels, and honestly, with everything that's happening, to be able. So I'm not 100% sure if it's open running right now, but I do know that we're all trying to get everything up and running. So.
Right. So this is maybe a question, it might be outside of, well, let me just ask it and you tell me what your thoughts are. Is there not some sort of kind of formal educational component to the prison systems? It seems like you all are having to go either prison by prison or state by state to get this kind of coursework accepted, which tells me there might not be a larger infrastructure around education of inmates.
Yeah, it is very much state by state, facility by facility, and honestly, the will of the Department of Corrections in one given state or another. So that's one of the problems that we're facing, is that one of the reasons it's been so hard is because you are up against some people like San Quentin, which is just got this amazing supportive administration, right? Amazing support coming out of Sacramento, and then you go into another state, like a New Jersey or an Alabama, and they're not, and they actively don't want those programs there. And they, what we find is a lot of the prison education programs, even though studies have shown that if you have access to prison education, your recidivism level drops significantly, right? What we find is if you're looking at the programs that even are available, they're not very intellectually challenging. They'll be like crocheting. It's more busy work.
Right.
A lot of times those programs are actually taught by people that are incarcerated inside, because they're teaching each other, because you're not getting the volunteers or you're not getting the support of the administration to allow people in. So for us, one of the reasons we like what we're doing right now is that it goes directly into the people. They reach out to us and they tell us, we're interested in writing. As we're going forward with PJ School, that's one of the things we're putting out there and saying, if you're interested in going through this program with us, it's correspondence based. It's at your pace. You send it to us. We will send you handouts, understanding that some of them may receive it, some of them may not get it, and it becomes this like game of tag. Like you send things, maybe you get it, great, you got it, and then somebody else won't. But we're hoping that sort of builds it, and we're trying to build our reputation, our trust with Department of Corrections, with these facilities, to show that we're not trying to burn anything down. It's not about burning a system down. It's about providing education and means for the 95% of people that are going to get back out, providing them all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Great. Well, we want to thank you for joining us today and for the great work that you're doing and for sharing that on the virtual speaker session today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
That's all the time we have for today. As a reminder, we'll be hosting additional speaker sessions in the coming weeks and months. This programming is in addition to the wide array of online networking events and career programs that are available throughout the year. You can find a full listing at alumni.psu.edu/events. Thanks again for all you do for the university, for the glory, and for the future. We are
Penn State.